Could Julian Nagelsmann seriously become the next Newcastle manager? Hey guys, I'm back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, today's video is going to centre around this man right here, Julian Nagelsmann, currently the coach of the German national team, of course. Well, if reports are to be believed today, he very well could be the next Newcastle manager, according to one Christian Falk. We're going to be talking about this story. We're going to be talking about Nagelsmann as a coach, as a manager, what he's doing right now with the German national team, the interested parties from elsewhere other than Newcastle United, and of course Eddie Howe himself. But before we get into all of that, I would like to remind you all, please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always very greatly appreciated. And of course, I encourage you lot to get involved in the comment section as well. Let me know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it on this particular topic down below in that comment section. Would love to hear from you all. I'm sure it'll make interesting and great reading. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk this whole Christian Falk story that has transpired from towards Julian Nagelsmann potentially interesting Newcastle United. So as of right now, Nagelsmann is preparing to take charge of the German national team ahead of the European Championships, which coincidentally are being held in Germany at the end of this season. You'll obviously know, if you've been following international football, that Germany, since winning the World Cup in 2014, haven't exactly performed well in major tournaments since. They have often floundered and failed and flopped about a bit in these kinds of tournaments. And Nagelsmann is having to pick up the slack from Hansi Flick, the former manager of the German national team, of course, who was sacked not long ago, and Nagelsmann was his replacement. What has happened since is that obviously Germany are now waiting to host the European Championships. That is the overarching story as of right now. And I guess what Christian Falk goes on to say is that obviously he's unsure as to whether or not he's going to stay with the national side beyond the European Championships that is upcoming in the summer. He's unsure whether to re-sign a new deal with them or whether to go back to club football. And I guess there could be some debate as to whether or not the pros and cons, I guess you could say, of both jobs. Maybe he just prefers managing a club. Maybe he might like the sort of more slightly more laid-back approach, I guess you could say, other than the day-to-day running of being the national team coach. I don't know. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but that could obviously be weighing on his mind. What could also be weighing on his mind in terms of whether he stays or not is obviously the performance that he puts on during those European Championship games, and whether or not obviously the German national team improves, whether it flounders still. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this club, with that team and that squad going forward. But obviously, in recent weeks, what we have known is that a fair few managers have announced that they're going to be leaving at the end of the season, and a fair few have obviously been put into speculation as to who will be succeeding them particular managers. You think of Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool as a prime example. You think of obviously Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich. You think of Xavi at Barcelona. Big clubs are going to be in need of big managers to fill their shoes. And a lot of managers have been thrown into the speculation pit surrounding that. We, of course, know about Xabi Alonso and the seemingly tug-of-war that is developing between Liverpool and Bayern Munich as a prime example. But there are other names out there as well that are being thrown into both of those mixes, because obviously only one team will be able to get Xabi Alonso. And let's face it, at the end of the day, it could be someone else that's not in that tug of war, or he could decide to stay at Bayer Leverkusen. It's really entirely up to the Spanish manager. There are other names and other people out there that have been thrown around in different mixes. Thomas Tuchel is going to be leaving Bayern Munich, but he's already been linked with the Bayern Munich job. Julian Nagelsmann is a name that has also been linked. Like as we said earlier, it's very much in the air as of right now as to what's going to happen after the World Cup. So it's going to be after the European Championships. I keep saying World Cup because it's an international tournament. It's very much up in the air as to his future, as to where it's going to be after the European Championships. Now, I've seen him be linked with a number of clubs. I've seen him be linked with Liverpool as the successor to Jurgen Klopp. If this was a couple of years ago, I might have said, okay, let's take a chance on him. But since being at Bayern, it hasn't exactly worked out. And since seeing more and more of him, because let's face it, this was a guy who, whilst whilst managing in the Bundesliga, whilst managing RB Leipzig and everything, this was a guy that was definitely on the cards and had the potential to be a serious top manager. And he's still young. He is still very young and still maybe can go on and reach, maybe not Pep and Klopp and Sir Alex Ferguson and Mourinho in his prime kind of levels, but he can definitely reach a top level within the managerial game. There's no doubt about it. As far as obviously the excitement that he brought to that Leipzig team and everything, but he needs to rediscover that. Maybe jumping ship to Bayern was seen as maybe a move that was too early in his career for him to really hold down and maintain. So there is definitely something to this guy's management and something to this guy's talent and potential as being a manager for the present as well as for the future. But obviously, this is a guy that's been linked with the Liverpool job. I've seen him linked with Manchester United. I've seen him linked with Borussia Dortmund. And now Christian Falk's put out that Newcastle may be interested in him. Falk tweeted today saying, exclusive, Newcastle is interested in Julian Nagelsmann, 36 years of age, for the summer. The German national coach has not yet decided if he wants to return to the club or sign a new contract. Nagelsmann is in the same agency like Newcastle's Fabian Schär. So, it's intriguing. It's interesting. It's interesting on two counts. One, Newcastle will go for someone like Julian Nagelsmann, if this is to be believed and this is to be obviously taken as legitimate. And two, the pressure on Eddie Howe is seemingly running out of patience for those in the Newcastle board. Because, yes, this season hasn't been particularly great by Newcastle in comparison to the last season. The last season was incredible. Them reaching Champions League football by leading a top four race for the majority of the season, keeping their nerve where others in the past have flopped and failed from that particular strong position, holding their nerve to be a top four team for that campaign, and then going on to be included in the Champions League, experiencing the Champions League for the first time in, 20 years? Something like that. Incredible stuff from Newcastle and from Eddie Howe's side. Now, this season hasn't quite worked out for one reason or another. There's been a ton of injuries. There's been a few other outside interferences as well. The Sandro Tonali thing as a prime example of outside interference, other than injuries, of course. You know, I think certain teams have maybe found out Newcastle a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see if Eddie Howe can maybe evolve his game and maybe obviously evolve Newcastle to the point where he can obviously grow Newcastle and maybe take them a stage further. But let's not forget here, Newcastle were not expected whatsoever to get top four last season. In the space of 18 months, Eddie Howe took Newcastle, that were a relegation battling team, all the way to the Champions League. Let's not forget, that's not something that was expected. Let's not pretend that that was to be anticipated just because Newcastle were lottery winners and they came into a lot of money, which, by the way, obviously due to FFP and things, they are a little bit restricted on and have not been splashing the cash as much as what people would have thought or believed them to. They still splash the cash here and there. They bought Sandro Tonali, like I mentioned. They bought Anthony Gordon for 45 million or something in that region. They splashed the cash, but not to the extent that people were talking about. And it's not like they've brought mega superstars in. With all due respect to Tonali and to Gordon, I like Tonali so much. And obviously, when his ban is over, can't wait to see him back in action. But it's not like he's a superstar. It's not like he's world class as of right now, as of yet. It's not like the kind of spending spree that a lot of people believed Newcastle would go on once they became lottery winners and once they came into all this money. So there's a lot there for Eddie Howe still to do. There's a lot there for Eddie Howe to still build upon. And this was always going to be a long-term project. This was not going to be an overnight success. The thing that makes it believed to be an overnight success is the fact that obviously he went into hyperdrive, into the fast lane, by shooting Newcastle straight up the table into the Champions League places. If this story is to be believed, and they are seriously considering Eddie Howe's future as their manager, I think it's a massive, obviously it's a massive deal, and it's obviously a massive issue for the Newcastle board to have to deal with. But I think it's a massive oversight into a project that kind of skipped a couple of steps, I guess you could say, in order to get to where they wanted to be in terms of the Champions League, but then obviously couldn't maintain it. This Newcastle squad is decent. It looks exciting. Yes, there are a few areas that need to be improved upon. Yes, there are a few areas that are needing to be strengthened, but it's a very exciting prospect. And for an English manager like Eddie Howe, and I think he does suffer from being English, in all honesty, in terms of the English media and everything, in terms of obviously how we rate him and everything. Maybe some people overhype him, maybe some people play it down a lot. This guy has done so much in the couple of years that he's been at Newcastle that because he's overachieved so much last season, he is the victim of his own success. And that's where I feel like if this is to be believed, that this Julian Nagelsmann thing is to be talked about as being genuine and there is definitely some truth behind it, I feel like it's a massive oversight from the Newcastle board. Especially when, in my personal opinion, although Nagelsmann does have a couple of Bundesliga title and a couple of Bundesliga trophies, domestic cups to his name, I don't see there being much of a difference, in all honesty, between himself and Eddie Howe. He managed to win the Bundesliga with the best team in that division. And I would argue that obviously Thomas Tuchel's the exception to this because it doesn't seem to be like he's going to be winning it this season. But I would argue a lot of people, a lot of managers would win the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich over the course of the past 10 to 12 years or so. A lot of people would. A lot of even seemingly seen as mediocre managers, with all due respect to the Bundesliga, with what you've got right now with Bayern and what you had back then with Bayern, a lot of people would have won it. Not just this man, but a lot of people would. Eddie Howe included. Eddie Howe included. So for me, this is not an upgrade. If this was an upgrade, it would be, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. Like, if this would have been like an upgraded manager, like a Klopp, so for example, like a Klopp, like a Zidane, say, I would be like, you know what? If it's now or never time, if it's one of them situations like what Nagelsmann may have found himself in with the German national team, and it was like, we either get him now or we completely missed the boat on it forever. If this was an upgrade, I would be honestly saying Newcastle fans should strongly consider it. But it's not. This is a sideways step. This, to me, is a sideways step in my opinion. This is another young manager with a fair amount of potential. Flopped a little bit at Bayern, I guess you could say. But at the same time, I guess had a lot of expectations that were very, very strict on his shoulders. I don't see this being an upgrade, and I don't see this being a way for Newcastle to upgrade if this is to be genuine and this is to be taken as the truth. I personally just see it as Newcastle need to fix up and need to realise that last season was a massive leap from where they were beforehand, where they were battling relegation. They moved into the Champions League places a lot faster and a lot quicker than what everyone and anyone had anticipated. They need a bit of a reality check in terms of this aspect, and they need to obviously realise that, wait a minute, it may not have gone according to plan this season as opposed to what it did last season, but at the same time, we're happy with where we are right now. We're happy with the development. And you know what? If we add also the kind of factors of injuries and outside interferences and other things to go along with that, and I know that obviously other teams deal with that. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that Newcastle did have a very big, long injury list earlier on this campaign. I know that some of the performances haven't been great. That's on Eddie Howe. But young manager, the team, put those things together or make mistakes. I'm just saying that time, patience is needed. And also some level-headed thinking of basically, yeah, we had a fantastic season last season. We weren't expecting it, so we might just manage and level our expectations for this season. I'm just saying, give it time. I don't think he should be sacked. I feel like he should be given another season or two to really progress, because I don't really feel like, and I said this at the time, that Eddie Howe is the long term of this. I don't really feel like he is the long term manager for the project. He is more the long term manager to get the ball rolling and to set the foundation for someone to come in and build upon. And that person to come in and build upon them is certainly not Nagelsmann, with all due respect. But those are the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this whole Newcastle and Julian Nagelsmann situation? Where do you think Nagelsmann will go at the end of the season? Do you see him going to a Newcastle? Do you see him going to a Borussia Dortmund? Do you see him going anywhere else? I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings. And Newcastle fans, definitely get in down below and tell me what you think about Eddie Howe. Should he stay? Should he go? Should he be given more time? Let me know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, on all of these things to do with this particular topic down below. I'm sure it'll make for great and interesting reading, I'm sure. So thank you very much for that in advance. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. For both things were always and very greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I'll see you speak to you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Have a good rest of your night, and I'll see you and speak to you all again very, very soon.